think it might have gotten up to 80 degrees today. It's still fall outside, and I'm hanging on to that. You know, it's like in the mornings it's really cool, and in the evenings it's cool. And if you look outside, last night Kyle and I were sitting outside before, you know, it got dark, and just looking around, and the trees are beautiful. They're changing colors, so it's definitely fall. It's just still a little bit warm. But anyways, even though it's 80 degrees outside, the meal that the dish that I'm gonna fix today is screaming fall. It is a stuffed acorn squash, and it is absolutely delicious. But before I get any further into the video, I did want to pause just a minute to just say thank you so much for watching today. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, go over there, subscribe, hit the bell so that every time I put out a video, you're going to be notified. And also, go to my website, Cook It for Two, that's cookitfortwo.com, and you can subscribe to my blog there. You can look at my recipes, pictures, and also you're going to receive a newsletter once a month, and it just kind of gives you some updates on Cook It for Two, on me and Kyle, some stuff that's going on, you know, in our life. If you haven't done any of that yet, I'd appreciate it if you did. Now, let's get into the recipe. So, as you can tell here by all this stuff going on, I have already done a lot of the work, but no problem. I'm going to go over everything with you that I did. So the first thing that I did was I have some acorn squash. All right, and so let me grab these right here so we can get a good picture of them. What I did was I have two, and I cut them in half. Now, if you have never cut or handled acorn squash, I want you to be very, very careful, okay? Because it's tough, all right? You need a sharp knife because it's really hard to cut the squash. Some are harder than others. So just be very, very careful when you do that. Make sure you know how to handle a knife so that you don't cut yourself. But all you're gonna do is you're gonna cut those squash in half. You're gonna have a pan with some parchment paper on it, and you spray that parchment paper with some, you know, oil cooking spray. Put your acorn squash with the cut side down, put it in an oven, 450, and you're gonna let that cook for about, I'd say, 15 to 25 minutes until that's a little brown and soft when you touch it with a fork, okay? So we have that step already done because it needs to cool a little bit because we're gonna scoop all of that goodness into our stuffing. All right, so now that brings us to the stuffing. What I have going right here in this skillet is I have some turkey, some ground turkey, and as you know, anytime I work with turkey, I like to really season it because sometimes turkey gets a bad rap just because it's a little bland. There's not any fat in it, so I added a little bit of olive oil. You could do avocado oil, you know, whatever you want to do. I let it cook just a little bit with some onion powder. I used garlic powder. I used a little bit of curry. I love curry, and especially this time of year. Oh, that smell just for some reason says fall to me with cinnamon. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I added that to the turkey, and I also added a chopped onion, about probably a half of an onion. Now, you can omit that. You don't have to add an onion if you don't want to, but it does kind of give it just a little bit more flavor. So we've got this going. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few more ingredients to it. I've already chopped up, I had a really big apple, so I just used half of it. You can use any kind of apple you want to. This apple here happens to be, I think, either Gala or Fuji. That's what I'm using. And I also have some mushrooms, okay? This is probably about, I would say maybe a cup and a half of chopped up baby Bella mushrooms. And I'm going to go ahead and just add these right into the skillet. Because what we want to do is we're going to let this simmer just for a little bit before we add our squash. Okay, so we got all that in there. Now you know you've got to season every layer. We got some salt, a little bit of pepper, and I've got about 3/4 of a cup here. I'm not gonna add all of this at first. I wanna kind of see. But I am gonna add in, I'm gonna say probably a 1/2 of a cup maybe. And we'll just kind of let this simmer a little bit and just see if we need to add some more. But back to what I said about the fall and the smells. Oh my goodness, I wish you could smell this. This smells absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to mix this up really well. And I'm going to let it just kind of sit here and simmer just for about 5 or 10 minutes. We want the mushrooms and apples to kind of start to soften up a little bit because we are going to bake it off in the oven. And one thing I did want to point out and just tell you as far as your turkey goes. When you cook your ground turkey, as soon as it's done, as soon as it's done, turn the heat off. Because like I said, you're gonna cook it more. Here, I'm having to heat these apples up. You're gonna have, if you're not ready for all this, I had done this ahead of time. So when it was finished cooking, when I knew it was done, turned it off. And just let it kind of sit there for a minute until I was ready to add the next ingredients. But my point is, don't overcook it, all right? Because it is gonna cook a little bit more in the skillet, and it's also gonna cook a little bit more in your oven. So, we're gonna let this simmer just a little bit. Okay, the apples and the mushrooms have gotten soft, soft enough. And I wanted to let you know, I may end up using all this, but I've come close to using most of it. That was 3/4 of a cup. But the full recipe will be on my blog. But again, it just kind of depends. Sometimes it takes all of it, sometimes it might not take as much. So always start with the small amount first, and then you can always add more. Now what I did was, I've already taken all of the squash except for one, and I have cut them out. I have scooped them out. That's what's in the skillet here, is the squash meat that was in there. Now you can see I've left just a little bit of an edge, okay? Because you want your bowl, this is like a bowl or your dish that you're gonna use. So you want it to be sturdy enough that it'll hold up. So you wanna leave a little bit in there. Don't scoop the whole thing out, okay? And like I said, I saved this one so I can show you. You're just gonna go in there, you can use a spoon, you can use an ice cream scoop, and you're just gonna get all of this deliciousness out of here. Oh my gosh, this is so good. But like I said, make sure you leave enough of a base in there to where it's gonna stand up when you cook it. All right, so we have our squash in here. Now the last thing that I'm gonna add is, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more salt and some pepper. And, all right, I'm gonna add a tad bit of, I have about 1/4 of a cup in this bowl. I don't know if I'm gonna add all of it. We'll add some and taste it. This is some organic maple sugar, okay? So I'm gonna add just a little bit of that. Again, it's fall, acorn squash, maple. You get the flavor of the maple and a little bit of sweet. And I'm also gonna add in some cinnamon, because the cinnamon is delicious, but it's also good for you. So, I've said before, I always try to throw some cinnamon in wherever I can throw it. So I put a little bit, probably I would say maybe a tablespoon, and we'll taste this and see. Once again, it's your kitchen. You can do what you want. You don't have to add the sugar or the cinnamon. And taste it, and you get it to taste the way that you like it to taste. I'm gonna get this all stirred up, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this back in our squash bowls, and we're gonna let this cook. But it's only gonna take about 10 minutes or so. We're gonna top it with some cheese, so we'll let that cheese get good and melted. The good thing about it is all of this is already pre-cooked, so that's all we have to do is let that cheese melt. But I do have a little surprise to share with you at the end. So you want to make sure you stay to the end of the video because you don't want to miss this little surprise. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and taste this because like I said, you know, you got to taste stuff. You don't want it to go through all this and cook it and then be like, oh, I should have done this different. So we're going to taste it. It's really hot. I need something though. Okay. I'm going to put a tad bit more of this maple sugar. And I'm going to put a tad bit more of the cinnamon. And a tad bit of salt. And then I think this is going to be delicious. Oh my goodness. Not only is it going to taste delicious, but it's also good for you. All right, we're going to turn the heat off. And I'm going to get a little bit larger spoon here. And we're just going to fill our squash bowls. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Man, I just love this. This is just beautiful. Not only are we eating the squash, but we're using it as our serving dish. Mushrooms. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat it. Do you ever do that? You're like cooking and it smells so good, and usually I'm hungry and it's like, oh, I can't wait for it to be done. I gotta eat it right now. All right, so now we can go, make sure that you get enough, you know, in each one, and then you can go back with what you have left and you can just stack it up as high as it will hold it. Because you want them all to be about the same. Now, tonight, we're having this surprise I told you about alongside with this. But sometimes, you know, we just eat this. You can do it with a little side salad, you know, with some other kind of vegetable. But this is just perfectly fine to do this just by itself. It doesn't really need anything else. You've got your protein, you've got your vegetables, some carbs, and all in one little beautiful, delicious dish. Okay, now we're going to top it with a little bit of cheese. And you know what? You can go crazy with this. You know, if you love cheese and load it up, or not. You can use a different kind of cheese. What I had in my fridge was just some cheddar cheese. So that's what I'm using. Oh my gosh, Havarti cheese would be good. Gouda would be good. Any of those cheeses would be delicious on this. Okay, that is about it. Saving the basil for last. When it comes out of the oven, we're gonna put some fresh basil on it for that pop of color and also just that taste of freshness. So here we go. We're gonna stick this in the oven for about 10 or 15, probably 10 minutes, because that oven is hot. So keep an eye on it because you don't want to burn it. I think the cheese is all good and melted, so I'm going to pull it out of the oven. Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. That looks so good. Okay, so we got that out of the oven. Now, the final little touch here, we're going to put some fresh basil. You can put rosemary. You know, I only have basil in my little herb garden, so I put fresh basil on everything. Well, I have some mint too, but I didn't want to put mint on this. But anyways, like I said, it just adds just a burst of color, and also it's delicious. We love basil. So that's the squash. Beautiful, beautiful fall dish that's perfect for two. He has one and I have one. All right, now the little surprise that I had, which some of you may be familiar with this and some of you may think this is absolutely just crazy, but please don't judge me. If you've never had it, try it because you will be surprised. I just kind of been missing my mom a little bit, and this just really takes me back. I don't know if you have any kind of a food like that, that you can just smell it or see it or taste it and it just takes you back to a really good place. And this does, because my mom, she used to make this all the time when I was younger. I don't know why, she kind of quit making it as I got older. She still made it, but not as much. And I think Kyle's mama even made this, or maybe a version of this. Reminds me of her. You can call this a side dish, you can call it a dessert, whatever you want to. But this is how my mama did it. So we have some iceberg lettuce. So I'm just gonna put a few pieces of iceberg lettuce on a plate. Pretty, you know, you wanna try to keep them as whole as you can. Piece of pepper there. Okay, so we've got lettuce. Now we're going to put a couple of, these are just canned pears. So we're gonna put a couple of pears on here, right on top of that lettuce. Now here is the crazy part. We have Miracle Whip, or you can use mayonnaise. What'd your mom use, Kyle? Did she use Miracle Whip or mayonnaise?
It's been too many years, but I think it was Miracle Whip.
Okay, we're just gonna put Miracle Whip and you just pile it right there on top of that pear. And I know this seems really gross maybe, but it is so good. So you put some Miracle Whip, and then the topping is cheddar cheese. Oh, this is so good. And then what you do is when you go to eat it, you eat the lettuce with it. So it's like a little salad. So you take a bite of the lettuce and the pear and the Miracle Whip and the cheese all together. So this was my little surprise. And it, like I said, it just kind of makes me happy. It makes me think of my mom. And we also used to fix this at I used to work a long time ago at the cafeteria at Melissa's Elementary. And we used to make this. We didn't serve it to the kids, but we made it for ourselves. So I don't even know what you call it, lettuce and pear salad maybe, but this is it. So again, great fall meal. I hope you enjoyed this. I always hope that you picked up something from this these dishes that you didn't know before. It sparked something in you that makes you want to go to your kitchen and try it and make up something great for your family. Lord bless you.